writing about carp fishing just always felt like a really natural thing to do. You know, it was never for the money or to keep my sponsors happy. It was just purely because I enjoyed doing it. I'd spend all my days talking to students about, you know, where was their photography going to go. So I suppose, yeah, sub for me was just that. It was just an art and design project. But I think also, yeah, I did feel that there was a lot of stories out there and a lot of characters and a lot of really, really interesting stuff that was happening in carp fishing that just wasn't really getting covered in the magazines. You've no idea what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what you're going to catch, but it's all still in front of you. And then you have this whirlwind of a trip. And then sadly, before you know it, because time always goes so quick, you're driving home, usually with a van full of trash kit, or soaking wet, everything stinks, and it's all happened. And there's just always this lovely moment on the way out of just that anticipation.
Is it a coincidence that a lot of the influential English anglers who've gone abroad
don't come back?
Did so at a certain age as well?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. I mean, I always used to think it was odd when people used to say, oh, you know, when people go to Europe or something, you know, have a week on a French lake or something, catch a 50-pounder and be like, oh, how'd you go back from that? Never understood that mentality at all. Like, I don't go to Europe at all to fish for big fish. You know, the fish are often big, but not all of them. That isn't my interest at all. I think it is just purely because you can angle. You can walk around, you can find fish, you know, you can turn up and you're just fishing against the carp and the environment. I think I felt like on a lot of the waters that I'd fished in recent years over here, you're not fishing against the carp, you're just fishing against 20 years of accumulated angler pressure, which has made them really cagey and really neurotic. And the fact that there's loads of other keen lads, you know, that seem to have lots of time. So you're just fishing against that, I think, half the time over here. And yeah, like you say, it probably is an age thing as well.
You're less tolerant of it now?
Yeah, I'm just not prepared to invest that time in it anymore. And I think since fishing in Europe as well, I think I just value completely different things in my fishing now. You know, good luck to the lads that you know, that really want to sit out for those big English ones. I've got the utmost respect for that, but I think for me now, it just isn't. It's just not as interesting to me. It's just not as interesting. I think I just love the experience of fishing different places, and yeah, just being able to angle.
Is there pioneering still to be done out there, Gaz? Is that the dream of pulling up at the water and not knowing what the hell you're likely to catch still alive? Yeah,
I mean, it feels like that to me. I mean, all the places we've fished are like well on the European circuit, so to speak. You know, some of them have been quite busy as well. You know, it's not all great big empty lakes with no carp anglers anywhere. You know, seeing a lot of angler pressure on some places this year. But I suppose one of the beauties of things out there is if you turn up somewhere and it's really busy, you just drive on to the next place in the region. You know, that's the thing, you don't have to, it's not like over here where you've got a syndicate ticket and if you're going to the same place week in, week out and it's busy, you've got no other options. You either put up with the crowds or you don't fish. Whereas over there, you can just drive on to somewhere else. So I suppose even though, yeah, like I say, that, you know, vast majority of the places that I fished have been really quite well known, it still all feels brand new to me. I mean, I'm completely inexperienced in Europe, really. There's guys that have been doing that for sort of 20 years and have fished hundreds and hundreds of different places out there.
And no doubt they sort of protect their hard-won info, and you're in a process now of trying to gather your own list and potentials.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of guys are really quite rightly so quite protective of them because they're public waters. Obviously anyone can turn up, so I think they're really sensitive. You know, and I'm quite conscious of that as well, doing the filming and obviously writing and being recognised and stuff like that is can be really difficult. You know, and we've had a few instances where, you know, locals have been quite upset, really. But again, I think rightly so. You know, if you turn up and you make a film somewhere, and then suddenly there's a big stampede of English anglers in the next 6 months or 12 months or whatever after you've been there, you know, they're going to be upset. And I think, yeah, I would say quite rightly so, really. So I'm just really conscious of that. Definitely haven't always got it right so far.
Yep.
And like I say, I've definitely upset a few people by having, you know, obvious landmarks and things but it's difficult because you can't avoid, if you go somewhere and film or you write about it, you just can't avoid drawing attention to it, like no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, and as a man of principle, that can't sit well with you. And I guess it's an evolution, isn't it? You're still trying to find a way to make it all work.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know what the answer is really, other than avoiding, like I say, any really big obvious landmarks, mentioning the place you're at, and you just have to be careful. But like I say, you just can't avoid it. As soon as you switch a camera on or you start writing about it, you have immediately drawn attention to it. One of the lakes we were at in Belgium last September, the week we were after there, my mate and his mate, that they had all 8 of their tyres done, cost them like €900 to get it fixed, and that was just some locals that were just unimpressed about us being there, and there just seemed to be continually more and more English guys fishing over there.
And when you're driving through France, as I've done a few times, albeit not to some of these amazing places that you've been, you can't help but look when you go through the Som Valley at the vast quantities of water that is out there. These can't all be places that are special to someone. There must be dozens of little lakes, big lakes, new lakes that have all got carp in them that you could explore.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's 10 to 50 lifetimes worth of fishing in Europe. Like I say, I mean, we literally haven't even begun to scratch the surface. Each trip we've been on for the last few, I think we've probably found out about another half a dozen waters in the region. Each one could be a week or a 2-week trip or a few nights, and yeah, it would take you a lifetime just to even explore one region thoroughly. So I think, there's just a whole, I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much as well, is because you just don't know what you're going to get. You know, the last couple of trips we've set off on, we've not known whether we're going to be fishing like 1,000-acre reservoir or a tiny little canal or something else. You just kind of never really know what you're going to find, which is just really exciting, I think, and probably I think one of the main reasons that I enjoy it so much.
Tell us about the best bits of any road trip, Gaz. What are the bits you really look forward to?
It's just got to be the drive out there. I think that first day. I always have this moment when I'm driving that if you're going away for 8 nights or 10 nights or something, especially if you don't really know where you're heading, you've no idea what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what you're going to catch, but it's all still in front of you. And then you have this whirlwind of a trip, and then sadly, before you know it, because time always goes so quick, you're driving home, usually with a van full of trash kit or soaking wet. Everything stinks, and it's all happened. And there's just always this lovely moment on the way out of just that anticipation. It doesn't always pan out. The last trip that we went on was a total disaster. 6-7 nights or something, pretty much blank, all manner of disasters. So it's not all, it isn't all it's not all gravy. You know, you don't have it off every time. But if you did, it wouldn't be half the fun that it was. I still like to be really challenged by my fishing. I don't want to go over and just wind in big fish. Like, that would be no fun either.
And it strikes me that it's a very, very physical form of angling. You're a guy, you keep relatively fit, but is there a certain school of thought that says this is a sort of fishing that you can do now, but maybe not in 15, like a young man's 20 game. Years?
Yeah, but then again, you've got the likes of Derek Harrison. How old's Derek? 63? Still out there doing it. There's plenty of people that are still out there doing it, and you can make it as physical as you want. I think, really. Yeah, obviously, carting leisure batteries around is quite hard going. and as soon as you start fishing only those big reservoirs, especially in the autumns when the levels are low and things like that, then yeah, you're getting really physical when you're starting to talk about that. But the joy of the fishing over there is it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be on smaller places, it can be on vast places, and you can, it's still, it's still all public waters where you can drift around and you can do what you want. But yeah, it doesn't all necessarily have to be vast, knee-deep mud, really extreme, but it can be if you want it to be.
Can you give us a glimpse into the biggest differences that people who've never fished abroad, certainly in the manner that you do, would notice if they tried to do the same?
In terms of the
the
fishing
stuff you've had to learn, basically.
I mean, everything about UK carp fishing translates really. Watercraft is everything. I think the key thing is just the biggest difference, and the biggest thing that's always struck me with the European fishing is that if you find the fish, you catch them. It is as simple as that. Like the hardest aspects are getting on the right water at the right month of the year, when the levels are right, when there's no one else there, and finding the fish. That's if it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 acres, like some of the big places, finding them can be quite difficult. That is the biggest challenge. You might spend 2 or 3 or 4 nights just purely trying to find the fish, but once you've found them, you will catch them. So it's just the logistics of things, really, more than anything. Like how the weather can be so challenging. If it's really, really rough, actually getting out in the boat, finding spots properly, getting rigs dropped, and getting rigs presented sort of safely and effectively, things like that can be the hard things.
People have
compared to
died.
UK fishing.
Gaz,
Yeah. It's
German
really
anglers
dangerous.
On Shanty, was it?
Yeah. And I never take that lightly either. And again, because I'm not hugely experienced at doing it either, I'm just trying to build. I mean, we have been out in a few conditions where it's been pretty rough, but some of the stories I've heard from some of the other lads.
Have you ever been scared out in the boat yet?
Yeah, once last November we were down on a big barrage in a really big wind, and that was quite concerning. But I just think it's like anything. The more you do anything, the more comfortable you become with it. But I definitely think, at all times, you just have to be really, really careful, because one slip, and that's it, and you're over. And if it's a big wind, middle of the night or what have you, that's it. Like you're suddenly miles away from your boat's gone, you're 300 meters out in the middle
with no bearings because it's dark.
Yeah.
So
all the little things like using your echo so all your home points are GPS and things like that. So you've always, even if your home light has gone, or if you haven't had a home light on or something, or your torch dies or something like that, you can always get home on your GPS. But just so like all the technicalities of that as well, all your kind of sort of power management and all that is really important.
You've
as
had
well.
to learn all that, presumably.
Yeah, I've had to learn all. And like I say, I'm still really new to it all, still just working out as I go along. But that I think is just really exciting as well. Like it's a whole new set of skills.
Yeah. Because presumably before that, power management meant, have you got enough gas in the car? Like if you ran out of tea.
Can I charge my phone for another 12 hours? It's just, it is completely different. But I think that's just after sort of 30 years of carp fishing, to be challenged in a completely different set of ways is just really exciting, I think. And I just think I had definitely, and don't feel ashamed to admit it at all, but I'd become really stale fishing some of the waters I was over here. And fishing those big places, because it's so different, just completely re-energised my fishing, I think.
I know you're someone that likes to have a good grasp on significant moments within any scene. Are there certain pictures and vibes that you like from that European scene that you were able to pick up on the same as you were with the English fishing?
No, probably not so much so. I can still remember all the early photos in Carp World from back in the day of like shots of Chantico and Orient, in the autumns with the water down, all the cut off tree stumps, vast plains of mud and stuff like that. And I remember I can't actually remember who it was by. Might have been Leon Hugendijk, I'm not sure. Just remember these shots of the interior of the bivvy and everything just being covered in mud, like the bed chair legs just sunk down into the mud, so it was just almost level with it, just everything trashed. And I mean, I suppose that's a lot of people's worst nightmare, probably. And it probably, to be fair, actually, to be put into it, probably would be my worst nightmare as well. But I think I was just always excited by it because it was so vastly different to anything that I was doing. Stuff like that always seemed really, really exciting. And I'm not really sure I ever really thought that I'd get to do it, if I'm honest, because of the investment in kit and time that you need to go and do that. I never really thought I'd get to go and do it. But it was always, it was always there. I always remember reading Tim Paisley's pieces about Cassian and the winter trips they did on Cassian, Briggsy's old stuff. That was always really inspiring. But yeah, so all that was, was always in the background. It was always something I'd had a desire to do, but perhaps never really felt like I'd ever be able to do it, I suppose.
And is there a sense, I mean, I could be way off beam here, but is there a sense that you're working up to fishing some of the giant lakes of central France, or is it something you're never going to go and do?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. Yeah, I would love to go and fish the likes of Orient or Chantecaille. Orient, I think, probably more than any, just because of the carp that are in there and the clarity and the characters. I think the fish in there are just really, really special. But again, that's a whole different step up in terms of logistics and technicalities and kit from what I've got now. Like, I've gone out and I've got like 3 motors, 2 boats, loads of batteries and stuff like that. But even that, for fishing somewhere like there, you still, I mean, I could go and fish it with the kit that I've got. But the way lads are fishing it now from the proper boats, the fiberglass boats, it is a different ball game again.
But that's sort of, is it the elephant in the room though? Those waters are on the edge of your mind, when you're thinking about the future and where your fishing can go in Europe.
Yeah, possibly. Again, I don't really think about it. I've always been really bad at planning ahead. Which is why I've never had any really nice UK tickets. I've always just drifted around, and I never think about where I'm going to fish next until I've finished on one place. And that might just be that I get to a point on there and think, I'm just not really enjoying this anymore. Like, I need another ticket. But I won't have had my name on any waiting list. I've always just been really bad at that. So I've just usually bounced around between bits of club tickets and things like that, little, gap fillers and what have you. And so I think, but I mean, I've got just shy of 100 pins in my phone now of places in Europe. And that's just only from the last year or so. I haven't been to all of them. Probably been to, I don't know, maybe 40 of them or something like that, possibly in the last year or so. Most of those I'd love to go back to. Lots of those have got other waters in the regions as well that I'd love to go to. But it's just, it could be years.
How important is it that you travel with someone else when you do these things? Is it for safety, for morale?
Yeah, for me personally, probably a bit of both. I think have met a lot of guys actually this year that travel alone, Dutch guys, German guys, French guys, and I think you're always going to catch more if you fish alone, because you'll always be in the exact spot you want to be in. Your 4 rods will always be the 4 that are on the best spot, or what you think are the best spots in that area. When you're fishing with someone else, obviously it's more of a compromise because there's the 2 of you, and so on and so forth. But again, the trips for me, they're not just about catching the most fish and the biggest. It is just about enjoying the trip, I think, and having someone else there definitely is a really big part of that for morale. Like when things are really shitty and you're really tired and everything's going wrong, having someone else there just to help, like pick you up, make coffee when you're having a bad time, or whatever, I think is really important. And I think, safety aspect as well, definitely. I could see how you could really, really easily get into trouble on your own even with the two of you, you could get into trouble really quickly on your own. But at least if there's someone else there, then yeah.
And how? What is it about Marcus and you that mean that your personalities or your abilities or attributes complement each other on these trips?
Marcus is just really laid back, very chilled angler, very unselfish angler, and I think we balance each other in so much as, so I'm the organised one, basically, and I think what Marcus does really well is, I mean, he's an amazing carp angler. He's got a great ability to read situations, and he relies on his intuition an awful lot as well. Like if he's not feeling something, or he'll have a particular feeling about a certain area, and something like that. So yeah, I think the balance of that works really well. I just think it has to be like whoever you travel with, it's just got to be someone that is on the same wavelength as you and that just shares the buzz in the same way. If it's someone that's a bit more coveted about their catches, or they want to catch more, or then it just isn't, it's just never going to work. Like you've got to be just as excited for your mate when he catches one. If you've had a real shit week and he catches a load of good ones, like you've got to still be just as excited for them, I think.
So when you pick Marcus up ahead of a trip, it must be such a buzz that first, that when you're loading the gear, you must be like climbing the walls of the van pretty much.
Yeah, they're always so exciting. Like every trip is genuinely really, really exciting. And you can't ask for more than that, can you? Like I hadn't really felt that for a long while with my fishing when I was loading the kit. Like loading the kit had just become a part of a weekly routine. I'd go straight from work, my kit would be in the van, I'd buy my shopping on the way, you get to the lake, and there wasn't like a real buzz, it was just something you were sort of going through the motions of often, I felt. Whereas those big trips, because obviously, you're doing less as well. We only do, I think we've done about half a dozen of them this year. So each one is a bit more of an event as well. Obviously there's a big gap in between. So I think that probably helps a little bit as well, because the buzz has a bit of time to build in between. If you're doing it every single week, like anything, it would probably fall back into the same sense of normality and routine, and like anything, the more you do it, the more ordinary, I suppose, by nature it will become. But because there's a bit of a gap and you've only got a week to make the most of it, but then you might not be going for another 2 months, there's sort of like an added excitement, I think, because of that as well.